Hi everyone, it's Rachel. As you can see, I am in my husband's office. You can see his clothes back there in his office. Well, I'm here at church, and it's not working hours, but I just have some free time that I wanted to do a quick recording on some things that are happening in our life. I hope that after watching this video that you might have questions, you might have opinions, and that's okay. We don't mind. Just don't be mean. Keep the mean things to yourself. Pray about how you would respond before you respond, maybe. I don't know. Some of you, this will catch you by surprise. Others, you'll shake your head and say, not surprised. So as some of you may or may not know, Albert and I were coming up on our 20th wedding anniversary, and we've had so many ups and downs in our marriage. We met as teenagers, got married in our early 20s, lived in New York, moved to Florida, moved back to New York, and when we thought about starting our family and building our family, adoption was not part of our plan. It wasn't something we considered or thought about until years later into our marriage. We never thought that we would build our family by adopting an infant, not just once, but twice, adopting two little boys. Our Lincoln, who was born addicted to meth. That wasn't our plan. That Lincoln was very last minute. Mason the whole process took 6 months. Lincoln's process, he was born, and then we got the phone call. So God chose to build our family a different way, and it wasn't part of our plan. We weren't expecting that. We never thought in a million years that God would use somebody else's DNA, a stranger, to build our family. And the fact that, when I was considering adoption and Albert didn't want to, his exact words were, "I'm not going to raise nobody else's kid." He didn't want to do adoption. That wasn't his thing. He said he would never do it. But it's funny how when we say never, how many times have those words come back and bit you? For me, it's happened once, twice, 3 times. It's happened a lot. I've said, I'll never do this, I'll never do that, I'll never do. But adoption, foster care. When I think of foster care, I always associate it with words like poor kids, or kids that have no parents, kids that have parents but they're addicted to drugs, abandonment, rejection, sexual abuse, physical abuse. I mean, the list in my head goes on and on and on when I think about foster care. I was really curious about the whole system and just where the kids come from, how the abuse or the abandonment or whatever it is, how does it affect them? And one thing I've learned is that foster kids, their brains develop differently than, let's say, a kid who has been raised in a loving home and, all of that. And so, it's crazy to think that their brains are wired differently because they didn't receive the nurturing that was required, whether it was prenatally or growing up ever. And so they're just wired differently, and there's a lot of brokenness, but to think that no one loved them enough, or parents just were so stuck in their addiction or in their own cycle of abuse that they couldn't care for their son or daughter. That's just crazy, right? Somebody was not loved enough, so their brains developed differently. I remember going on a missions trip here at the church, at Parkway Life Church, with the youth group, probably 7-8 years ago. And we went to Mexico, worked in an orphanage, and the kids there are absolutely beautiful. They're so beautiful. The babies are, you just want to love them and squeeze them. And while we were there in Mexico, we had the privilege of painting a classroom and putting on a VBS and, doing whatever we needed to do to make these children feel loved, to make them feel God's love, more importantly, to feel God's love. And when I left Mexico, I was so sad because I thought, I want a kid. I want one of these kids. I want to take them back. I want to take them, home with me and raise them and give them all the love that they deserve. And getting back to the United States, life. And then you forget. And unless I saw something posted on Facebook about their orphanage or somebody posting a picture, a throwback Thursday, whatever, you forget. And what's sad is there are kids, foster kids that live in an orphanage, we call them group homes in the United States, that need love, that require love, that deserve love. We have a group of kids that come from a local foster group home, that they've been coming to the church. And these kids are little rascals, like lovable little rascals, and I instantly fell in love with every single one of them. And it's crazy because each week, depending on how they behave in their group home, will determine who gets to go to church. It's so crazy. And so a few of them call me mom right now. They come and hug me. They look for me. They look for Albert. They look for some of our other adults that are here at the church. And we just love on them. And some of them are in foster care, have been in foster care for many, many years. Some of them, you can adopt them. Their parents have lost their rights. And some of them are waiting to be reunited with their parents, which is kind of crazy because it makes me curious to think, who would give these children back to their parents, right? That hurt them and abused them or didn't keep them safe. But, I get it. The whole purpose of foster care is to reunite the family. I'm not saying anything against that. Every case is different. It was just my curiosity. This was my initial reaction to foster care and what that means. More importantly, I think I was more curious about, while they're in the group home, who helps them with homework? How do they celebrate the holidays? How do they celebrate their birthday? Some kids don't know what it's like to sit with family and open up Christmas presents. Some kids never got a cake for their birthday, a candle to blow out, because they're in the system, they're in the foster care. And let me tell you, some of these group homes, they're doing it and they're doing it well. And they're making sure that they're providing a family environment for these children. So I don't knock that at all. Kudos to them. I was more curious about these kids and their mindset and what I can do. Who's putting these kids to sleep? My 6-year-old and my 3-year-old, we have a routine. We read, we pray together, we snuggle, listen to music. They have special blankets, special things that they sleep with. Do these kids have that? So as Christians, we're supposed to be the hands and feet of Jesus, right? Hopefully we're constantly asking for God to open doors of opportunity to reach the community. And you know what? The community came to my church. The community came through the doors of my church and sat behind me, a couple rows behind me. And it's these kids that curse sometimes, they get angry, they spit, they hit, they are rascals, they are rough around the edges, they are broken. In his heart, a man plans his steps, but God directs his heart. Right? That's that in the Bible somewhere. I'm such a planner. I'm an organizer. I love to organize the snot out of anything. Give me something to do, I will organize it to death. This wasn't part of my plan. It's crazy, right? After adopting our oldest son, who's now 6 years old, we did think about foster care because we wanted Mason to have a sibling. And so we thought about it. We actually even went to some of the pride classes that you have to take. And then we quickly dismissed it because of the brokenness that comes with these kids. Fostering a child, it means creating boundaries around yourself, around your children, your family, your friends. You can't allow them to hurt your kids. You can't allow them to touch them inappropriately because they know that as love. But my kids don't, Having a fear of hugging them, reaching out to them. Am I going to say something wrong? Am I going to do something wrong? Are they going to run away? What's this going to cost me? Spiritually, will my kids pick up bad habits? Well, not to mention the questions that you would get from your family, your friends, your Christian friends. Are you using wisdom? Do you know what you're getting yourself into? No, I don't. I have no idea. I've done research. I know what's out there. I know what to expect. I know every case is different. It's not my plan. It's not our plan. It's God's plan. We had a plan. My husband and I had a plan. Our plan? I wanted to feel that nervous excitement you get when you find out that you're pregnant. I wanted to feel a baby growing inside of me, kicking. I wanted to throw a reveal party with all my family and friends. I wanted my family to rub my belly and tell me how beautiful I am, pregnant. I wanted to wear maternity clothes. I wanted to go through the pain of childbirth. I wanted to push that baby out. I wanted to make the faces and do the breathing. I wanted to look in his eyes and see myself or see Albert. That was my plan. I wanted family to discuss who he looks like as he's growing up. I wanted to see whose personality he was going to get. I wanted to breastfeed, as crazy as that sounds. We didn't want to raise someone else's kids. We're Puerto Rican. We know how to make them. We know how to make them, have them, raise them. Puerto Ricans don't normally adopt because they're too busy having kids of their own, right? We had a plan. We had a plan. And then I grieved that plan. I grieved our plan. I let that plan die because that plan was not coming to fruition. That plan had to die in my heart in order for God's plan to live. And his plan was uncomfortable. God's plan was hard. And God's plan was embarrassing and scary to this day. I don't know if my boys will grow up one day and want to know their birth family and leave. I don't get to have the kids that they don't have another family to choose from. I grieved my plan so a new plan can live. God's plan. And God chose me and Albert and Mason and Lincoln to be together as a family. Mason is 6, Lincoln is 3. And it wasn't It was just recently that I let those feelings of shame and embarrassment and confusion and hurt, I let those die. I let those die because God chose me. I was one of the lucky few to be chosen to live this life, to raise my babies the way I'm raising them, the way we're raising them. So I'm holding my head up. I say it with joy, with pleasure, that God's plan for me was to adopt, was to foster. We're gonna foster a girl. She's beautiful. She's broken. She's hurting. And she does not have a family. Hasn't had a family since she was 5. And it is scary and wonderful. She's so loving. And she is adoptable, wants to be a part of our family, and we want her to be a part of our family. Mason has met her, knows her, has written a letter to her. I wish I could show it to you, but I can't yet, but I will. He's drawn her pictures, asked questions, calls her sister. And so we're on a new journey of fostering to adopt. It's not my plan. This is God's plan. So pray for us.